Did you vote for the measure yesterday, and if so, why?
Yes, it did. I think it was a gesture that people have to understand, Hoppy, that when the Republicans only control, with a slim majority, just the House of Representatives. We don't control the Senate. We don't control the presidency. And I think what's happened over the first 2 years sometimes is they've tried. Sometimes maybe the Republicans have overpromised and haven't been able to deliver because the Senate has simply blocks it or the president threatens a veto. So with this was a major accomplishment yesterday because the president has now said, that's a bill I might be able to support.
Right.
And Harry Reid has said, touche, you've done a good move because they really put Harry Reid in a box. What we did yesterday was say, we're willing to extend for just 3 months raising the debt limit, but the Senate, you have to act. And up until that time, we've not been able to find a vehicle to force the Senate to act on passing a budget. They have gone nearly 4 years without a budget, Hoppy. What business can exist without having a budget?
Well, the theory is that they have to pass a budget, the Senate, or nobody gets paid, correct?
The Senate will not get paid. If the House has to pass its budget, and all those are good questions. By April 15th, there is a law that was passed back in 1974, long before I was ever considering Congress, and it gave the date. So there is a requirement for the House and Senate to pass a budget annually. Well, the House has done that. Whether I agree with it or not, this House has done that. The Senate, however, for the last 4 years has not passed a budget. Just not passed a budget. Mm-hmm. So it's no wonder that we've racked up some new deficit spending. We've gone over $1 trillion overspending because there's no budget. So this is a way to force some discipline over on the Senate side, and it also will require the House to do the same thing. It doesn't mean that we have to jointly approve our budget, but the Senate physically has to pass a budget.
Well, then in theory, the Senate would pass a budget, and the House would pass a budget, and there would be spending cuts in there, and then could you agree on spending cuts? That's where we should be headed, correct?
Absolutely. That is the goal, and but we don't know what the Senate's going to come back with. The Senate has said they will take the bill up, but there are a lot of provisions. That's what we have to just watch and see what they're going to do. The Senate could strike; they could amend out this provision that says they have to pass a budget and strike everything just other than leaving in there, just raising the debt limit and pass the bill back to it.
Now, Congressman David McKinley's with it. It occurs to me that one of the big areas of contention is obviously it's going to be entitlement spending. You voted against the Ryan budget a couple of years ago because it had cuts in Medicare. Are you going to have to accept the fact that there will have to be reductions in Medicare or some fundamental change in Medicare to get federal spending under control? Is that where you personally are going to have to compromise?
Certainly, we're going to have to look at a lot of things, but I've said to you and other people, it was not just that was not a simplistic approach that we took towards it. We looked at the Ryan budget. The Ryan budget wasn't balanced for 28 years. Hoppy, I'm not going to live that long. I want to see a balanced budget in my lifetime again. We saw it for 4 years, in '99 through 2002. I want to see a balanced budget again. This country's got to get its fiscal house in order. So under what they're talking about now, we got a commitment from Boehner this past week was that in this vote, the upcoming vote, there will be a balanced budget provision that will set that we will get to a balanced budget within 10 years.
Right.
Now, so the devil's going to be the details. How do we get to that? What spending changes do? What entitlement changes? What welfare changes are there? How are we going to get some people?
Well, if you're going to get there you know this, Congressman, you've been there long enough. If you're going to get there in 10 years, there's going to have to be something substantial in Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, and defense. And again, you balked at the Medicare changes last time, so that's where I think the rubber's going to meet the road for you.
Those two represent about 43%. Medicare and Social Security represent 43% of the budget. Other welfare programs represent 19%, and national defense is another 19-20%. I'm willing to look at all those. We're going to look at very carefully. What are they doing? Are they going to just simply cut? If they're going to cut any program that someone's currently receiving, then I'll vote no again. You're not going to take something away from someone that they've paid into it and they're receiving it currently, and you're going to take away. You can't do that. So I'm going to be very curious to see what the House budget comes to. But more importantly, Hoppy, is relish with me just for one day that we've actually
yeah, okay, I'll give you
minority in Washington, and we're a minority party in Washington right now. People have to accept that. But we've actually made the Senate pass a budget they haven't passed in 4 years.
I'll give you that. I think everybody agrees that's a strategically strong move that hopefully, I know maybe it's lost on those of us in flyover country, but maybe it gets you to a point where you, by you, I'm meaning Washington, finally deals with the debt issue. So, yes, I'll give you that.
Understand where their priorities are. We've not understood where their priorities are. Keep in mind, the only time the Senate has voted on a budget is it was a ruse or whatever, but they brought up the president's McConnell brought up the president's budget that he proposed. The president proposed
and was rejected out of hand. Sure. Congressman David McKinley's with us, Republican from the 1st District. Republican National Committee Chairman Reince Priebus tomorrow is going to lay out a plan for what he calls Republican renewal. He's going to tell members of your party that they have to abandon the concept of battleground states and look to compete in every state and region. That's according to a Politico report today. Do you think that the Republican Party needs a renewal? Does it need a different approach following the last election?
I think so. Not just.
And what does that look like if it does, in your opinion?
I think it's been going for some time. I've been frustrated with the Republican Party and frustrated with the whole political system. That too many games are played. It's become too much of business. I think what we need to make sure is the American public, and I think that's what I hope the Republican Party make sure that the people that are office holders relate better to people. They can't be in Washington. They've got to come back, and they've got to hold these meetings, these town hall meetings, and be accessible to make people understand that we're no different. We've been blessed with these opportunities that have been given to us to represent them in Washington, but make sure that they hear from us. And if that's one tool that we should be using, I think we ought to be implementing it as soon as possible.
Congressman, finally, I've reported and talked some about this U.S. Senate race in 2014. We know that Capito is in. When I asked you about it the last couple times, you said, well, let's wait and see. You were not automatically on the Capito bandwagon as a fellow Republican. In fact, on the last program, you said you want to make sure that she was going to be a deficit hawk, and if not, that there are other candidates out there. I know that since then, and I also reported, I think the Capito people were a little bit surprised by that. I know that since then, you and Capito have talked. What is the status of relationship now between you and Capito, and are you supporting her in 2014, or are you still waiting to see whether you'll support her or not?
I told her that my expectation, we just met this week. We talk every day. I want people to understand there is no animosity between the two of us. What I want to make sure is that we have that, as I said, consistently. I want to make sure that the most fiscally responsible person is our candidate. And she continues to assure me that she's going to vote appropriately. And she did vote in opposition to the that deficit spending on that we had at the end of the year. She's going to continue to do that. So if she does that, then I'll be fine. But listen, I still think it's a little early. But at the end of the day, I wouldn't be at all surprised that you'll find me supporting her. But I just want to make sure that we're all held accountable here, and we have the most conservative voice in Washington. This election in 2014 could be a profound effect on the direction of the country if West Virginia elects a Republican U.S. Senator. I don't know when the last time was we had a Republican senator from West Virginia.